Thank you all for coming out tonight to the John Wright Speaker Series with Severn River Association. For those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Jesse Iliff. I'm Executive Director here at SRA. I also want to thank tonight's diamond sponsor, Boatyard Bar and Grill, for making our event possible. Thanks to them. We can't do the work that we do without all of you, so if you are not already a member of SRA, I hope you'll consider joining. There are sheets on the table that make it really easy. There are 4 different things you can do to practice your QR code skills, including supporting SRA, joining the newsletter, and importantly, giving feedback on tonight's presentation so that we can continue to improve as we roll this out over the coming months and years. A couple of housekeeping items. Please keep your questions until the end. We want to make sure that all of our friends tuning in on Zoom can hear the questions as they're asked. So we will either hand you a mic or we will repeat the question into the mic so that our online participants can enjoy the Q&A. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day, everybody. I spent all day yesterday fooling around in my own garden, so I'm really excited to hear from tonight's speaker. I've recently become full-blown evangelist about native plants and invasive species management, and our speaker tonight is going to clue us into a number of ways that we can get that done effectively on our own property to make sure that it has the best possible impact on the Severn River. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our speaker series chair, Brian Gomes, to introduce tonight's speaker.
Good evening, y'all. Thank you for being here tonight. Can you hold out your thumbs? Are they green? Okay, they're about to get greener. Elizabeth Elliott bought Himmel's Landscape and Garden Center in 2018, but worked there as a young woman 20 plus years before. In between, she's enjoyed a career in higher education, traveled the world as a fundraiser for nonprofits, and in her spare time, you might see her out and about as a singer in a local rock band. She loves kayaking and traveling. Please give a warm welcome for Elizabeth Elliott.
Thank you, Brian. Give me a moment to set up, please. Okay, can we hear me okay? Yes. Great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for attending here in person and virtually. We really appreciate that. I'm so excited to be here. This is my second year as a speaker for the John Wright Speaker Series with the Severn River Association. So thanks for inviting me back. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Elizabeth Elliott, and I own a garden center in Pasadena, Maryland called Himmel's Landscape and Garden Center. We're located 4374 Mountain Road, so I hope you get the chance to come and visit us sometime. We are a mission-focused business, helping our neighbors build a better, healthier, and more beautiful world. And that mission is very important to us, and I think that you will see that kind of passion if you visit our garden center and see our staff. So it might just take me a second. Am I supposed to be pointing this somewhere else? That's okay. So if you get the chance to visit the garden center, you will see our very friendly and knowledgeable staff, who we have a certified professional horticulturist, a master gardener, an herbalist, 2 native plant specialists, a landscape designer, a Starbucks HR expert, a grower of organic herbs and flowers, 3 high school students, which I personally adore having high schoolers working with me, landscape supervisor, landscape estimator, 3 foremen, and other crew members. And my son there in the middle on the right doesn't work for me, but you can't help but have that picture here. So I'm very proud of my staff. We are passionate about our mission of helping our neighbors build a better, healthier, more beautiful world. And we really care about the Chesapeake Bay and its precious watershed. So we do embody that in our interactions with our customers and our landscape installations and otherwise. So how do we contribute to a better, healthier, and more beautiful world? Well, I like to think that we don't just talk big ideals, we actually embody them. And we do that by helping our customers create a uniquely beautiful habitat. We use native plants to solve problems. We design and build sustainable and edible landscapes. We conduct reforestation projects. We build pollinator gardens, rain gardens, bioswales, and other types of native plant installations. And we do that for our clients, landscaping clients, and also in partnership with some local nonprofits like Horseshark H2O, the Chesapeake Bay Environmental Center, and at schools and community centers. So we really do love to be a part of a community that's working to improve the environment and do the right thing. We practice what we preach. And we are bay friendly. The products that we sell are all organic, so you won't find any harmful chemicals or fertilizers in our garden center. Everything's organic. We sell a wide variety. We're not exclusive native plants, but we sell a wide variety and growing of native plants, sedges, perennials, shrubs, and trees. And we, again, we donate native trees for organizations, schools, and otherwise. So we are very happy to be part of such a robust community. Also, we find that we have lots of master gardeners, watershed stewards, and newbies who are really interested in learning how they too can build a better, healthier, more beautiful world. So we're happy that we have such great staff who are educated in those ideals and willing to help our customers. So the presentation today is called Solution Gardening with Native Plants. What does that mean? Basically, we're talking about solving problems in your backyard using native plants. So my goal tonight is to talk briefly about what some of those problems might be, but leave a lot of time at the end for your questions, because I think many of you have come armed with questions or ideas or problems in your backyard, and I'd like to be able to talk those out. So I'll go through some of the things we see on a regular basis, but I'd like to, talk a little more at the end. So, what do we mean by using native plants to solve problems? We are talking about restoring habitat for pollinators. That's probably the most trendy thing that we hear about anymore. Everybody knows that pollinators are in trouble and that we should restore habitat. So that's something we talk about frequently. We also use native plants for resisting deer damage. I know that some of my clients here in this very room are familiar. We try and use native plants to manage climate change, control erosion, rebuild habitat, reforestation, and manage drainage issues. So I think we're going to start by talking about restoring habitat for pollinators. We all know that between habitat loss and harmful pesticides and other variables, that habitat is being destroyed. Pollinators are in trouble, and I think we all know how important they are to our daily life. We rely on pollinators for our food source, so it's important that we restore habitat. And I think everyone, no matter how small or large your space is, everyone can contribute to that by having a garden in your own backyard. So some examples of that are planting native perennials in a container on your back porch. Building a native woodland garden. Many of us live in woods edge areas, so we can make the best use of that kind of space by planting native plants that do well in the shade and that will build habitat for birds and moths and other kinds of things that will thrive in that. And we actually promote the use of leaf mulch in many circumstances. So a woodland garden with leaf mulch is a great way to build habitat in your own backyard. A monarch way station is another fun and exciting way to build habitat. And we're actually doing that this year at Himmel, so you can visit us and check out our own monarch way station, which will be certified pretty soon. We're working on that now. But We do plant, a lot of people love flowers, all kinds of flowers, and they don't stick with exclusive native plants, and that's okay. But just be mindful that if you're planting non-native plants, flowering plants that are fragrant and beautiful, you'll want to still have native plants close by that they can actually benefit from. So we can talk more about that if you have questions. We're not a no non-native plant 100% of the time garden center. We sell lots of different varieties, but we definitely promote the use of 100%. When planting, you'll want to plant clumps of plants rather than just one of this or one of that, because that is helpful for foraging. Clumps of plants provides more foraging opportunity for pollinators. And of course, a diverse selection gives different kinds of pollinators the opportunity.
Share as much information as possible here. Moving on to the next slide, if I can. I just want to share some of our favorite pollinator perennials that we use. We all know that the milkweed and the butterfly weed are very important native species for the monarch whitefly. But we also like goldenrod, blue-eyed grass, the cicericium. Swamp mallow, cardinal flower is one of my favorites because that attracts hummingbirds. It's beautiful, it does well in wet soils, and it can thrive in full sun, partial shade. So it's pretty hardy, really nice plant. Sigelia marylandica, which is an Indian pink. That's one of my favorites because when the plants were classified, you'll usually hear that it's canadensis, virginiana, so indicating that it was founded or discovered in Virginia. But this one is marylandica, so we can have great pride in the Indian pink name. That is called an Indian pink, Spigelia, Spigellia. Really pretty red and yellow flowers with tubes that attract hummingbirds. So I love that one, and we sell a lot of that. I'd love to advance these slides, but it's not going to work out for me, so I'm just going to keep moving. And I have a whole other list, so we'll certainly share the slide deck for everyone because we have lots and lots of information, lots of plants listed here. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on any one particular issue, so we can have lots of questions. One of the bigger problems that we face is deer destruction. And, you know, we install beautiful landscapes, but it has become problematic because the deer are eating more diverse things than ever before. And it's not because they're hungrier. Well, it is deer. It's because they're hungrier, but it's not because, you know, they want those ornamental plants. It's because their native food sources are running out because there are so many of them. So we have too many deer and not enough of their native plants, and it's, you know, it's an issue. So I'm sure many of us have dealt with deer destruction in our yards, and it can be very frustrating, especially when you've invested a lot of time and energy and money in your yard. So things that we do or recommend, if you can, plant like a buffer area, an area where the deer can graze, or even leave some of that, those the poison ivy, the green briar, the Virginia creeper, sarsaparilla, some of the things that they naturally graze on. If you don't mind the look of it and the leaf litter, that's a native habitat. It's actually a good thing to do. Leave that for the deer to graze, and then as the edge goes into your yard, you can start to transform that into new wildlife. It's something that's attractive for lots of different pollinators, and then you don't really mind the deer grazing. So a buffer is a great idea. You know, you're kind of providing food for them, but keeping them away from your prized plants. Deer are easily startled. You probably know, so flags, spinners, things that will startle them will scare them away. Anything that will trigger like a sprinkler or a motion detector light, something like that, will also keep them away, but you have to move that frequently because they get used to those distractions. So that's, you know, those are things that we install sometimes for our clients, but we recommend for customers do that anyway if you have a big deer population. And for there are deterrents like granulars and soaps and sprays. You can do a combination of those things. There are plenty of organic products out there that you can spray on the plants, granular things out. The smell is terrible, it'll keep the deer away, but they're not foolproof, so you'll have to do a variety of things. But mostly you'll want to try and plant things that the deer won't tend to eat. And we never say deer, I used to say deer proof, but that's just not true. I was telling Sandy here that, wow, winterberry is just great, the deer won't touch it, and that is just not true. So I inadvertently had that listed twice here because I love winterberry highly. But, they eat them up, didn't they? Yeah, so things that they don't typically eat are the black-eyed Susan, some of the sedges, the carex grasses. I just love it. Anyway, they're so beneficial for many reasons, many applications. And they look nice, kind of in swaths of color, and they're deer resistant. So I recommend this. Plethora is fantastic. It's fragrant, and it doesn't seem to be a favorite of deer. That's great stuff. Lots of the grasses, I think the wind blowing and the texture, they're just not attracted to that. Bayberry, inkberry, sweet spire, the viburnums, mostly are deer resistant. And again, I have winterberry listed here, but below it for plants to avoid, I also have winterberry listed, so part of my error there. I used to plant camellia as a beautiful ornamental because they didn't eat that, but they certainly eat those. So some of the favorite ornamentals, the old-fashioned things that we used to love, azalea, rhododendron, yeah, not anymore. They'll devour your tulips, the yews. So I have a whole list of other options of tried and true plants here that are natives. You can also look at the garden center where you like to shop. They will have branded products from growers who are really focusing on this issue. We work with the Perennial Farm in Maryland, and they have their branded Deer Lyrius products, and they're beautiful, very healthy, lots of native selections, and selected, true natives for their deer tolerance, I'll say. Again, nothing foolproof though. You'll never be 100%. So, again, just solving problems in your backyard with native plants. We've got lots of great plants listed here, which we will share in this slide deck. Let's talk about climate change. So who thinks that climate change is not in this room? I know. It's real, it's happening all around us. And we see, and even in my few years here, working in a garden center, working in this industry, I'm seeing plants on availability lists that were never, ever available 20 years ago. It's interesting, but it's the effect of climate change, so warming climate. You've probably seen oak trees just dying out everywhere. In your own backyard, I know a lot of my customers are complaining about fungal disease in their perennials and lots of other issues, and that's due to climate change. Longer periods of drought, excessive precipitation, humidity, other issues that exacerbates, these fungal issues in plants. So we have shied away from actually using some ornamental, unprimarily native plants like the native dogwood. Unfortunately, I don't like to use that anymore because they just don't last. They're so quickly attacked by fungal disease, and it's just not worth the investment. I want they're beautiful. I don't recommend using the native dogwood anymore. Mountain laurel are almost impossible to transplant, so I don't recommend those. Although they're great for shade and solving some problems in the yard. They're just hard to transplant, and they're susceptible to fungal disease and other issues. And certainly some common old-fashioned favorites like Japanese Andromeda, rhododendron, we're not using this much anymore because of the fungal disease. So what are we doing about that? I'm sure many of you love the University of Maryland extension. I certainly do. So I grabbed a quote from them and they say, as climate change accelerates, more severe weather like floods and droughts, higher temperatures, earlier springs interrupted by freezes, which we're gonna have this week. I have to move all of my plants inside one of these nights because we're down to 30 degrees again, unfortunately. But new pests and disease pressures will put stress on trees in our forests and landscapes. And that's not just trees, we know shrubs, down to the perennial sedges and otherwise. So what do we say? We recommend planting more trees. Trees will obviously help cool our warming climate. They provide beneficial food and habitat for native pollinators and other wildlife. They help the bay because they intercept and soak up rainwater, stabilize the ground, reduce erosion, and help keep water clean. So we recommend some hardy native trees tolerant to the conditions in your yard, and you'll know the conditions in your yard, you know, whether it's sandy or clay soil, whether it's hot and sunny, or dry shade, or moist shade, you know, you'll know that there's a tree for your condition, guaranteed in the tree. And they help solve problems like erosion or drainage. So if you have questions, the University of Maryland Extension is a great resource. Also, your local garden center, like Himmel's. Anyone you speak to in Himmels will know about these issues and will be able to help you select the appropriate native tree for your environment. And we really believe, and it's proven, that by planting native species and restoring our habitat, we can mitigate the negative effects of the warming climate. So again, here I have a list of some Maryland native plants that we love. Platinum bush is one of my favorites. The flowers are absolutely charming, and butterflies love them. Little native bees love them. The blueberries are gorgeous, not just for the fruit they produce, but fall color is awesome. Northern bayberry, gosh, I love the witherrod or the viburnum nudum. It's absolutely beautiful with the different berries it produces in the fall color. Winterberry holly, again, one of my favorites. If you can plant it in location where deer won't bother it, you'll be rewarded with lots of beautiful berries in the winter time. So again, and also diversity in plant selection. Plant a lot of different things. Don't just rely on one thing, so that if you are attacked by fungal disease or some other issue, you won't lose it all. Okay, reforestation. We are frequently contacted by customers who are required by the county to enter in reforestation agreements, which mitigates the effects of clearing and helps to reduce runoff from impervious surface. Very, very important for a healthy bay and healthy watershed. We really actually appreciate the county for enforcing this policy because it protects our environment, and we all love the bay. I'm sure we're very blessed and fortunate to live in such a beautiful environment, and we all want to do what we can to protect it. And how do we do that? So we create designs that incorporate lots of different selection of native plant material. The county will give a list, but we like to mix it up a little bit and move away from just the river birch and the native azalea that they always recommend. And, you know, there are lots and lots of other places out there. So we educate clients on how many other native plants they can use and how they'll benefit their particular site. So we really enjoy these reforestation agreements with the county. And also we find that, you know, customers love, or people just love to watch birds and learn about the wildlife population. So we can introduce plants that will attract certain bird species or pollinator species. There's a lot to learn about what you can attract and what will thrive in your own backyard using them. And again, a great list of native trees here. My favorite evergreen is probably the eastern red cedar because of the birds, and it's evergreen that thrives in partial shade condition, wet soil, dry soil, lots of different conditions. Of course, there's a sweet bay magnolia, beautiful flowers. The fruit attracts lots of birds. I have them right outside of my home office window, and I see, you know, black-capped chickadees and cedar waxwings, cardinals, and all kinds of different warblers and such there. Lots of deciduous trees that, you know, the eastern redbud or the fringe tree, very attractive blooming trees that are beneficial. So If you have any questions again about these offerings, please, we'll have lots of time to talk about it here. Finish. Wow, erosion, that's a big one. So I live right next to a park in Arnold. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's just a little small park. And in the last 5 years since I've lived there, almost the entire shoreline cliff has eroded, and the counties had to kind of rope it off to keep people away. But it's significant. And we see it all the time. I was just at a property today where we are to plant about 400 plants on the hillside to stabilize it. But it's significant. I mean, it's almost a negative drop off in some points. And, you know, the house is only 25 feet from that. So that's pretty intense. But we use native plants to help control erosion. Obviously trees, you know, there's so much tree removal with development. And it's erosion, right? It's natural. It happens naturally, but development and other issues exacerbate it. So the removal of so many trees and clearing properties, we just see that it speeds up that, and we're trying to restore shorelines all over the county with native plants. So I love native grasses and sedges because they have a nice spreading root system that will help control erosion in that way. Obviously, trees with their deep tap roots are a great thing to use if possible. Although space is sometimes limited. One of my favorites is Itea. It's a native shrub that forms kind of thickets the way it grows and spreads underground. So that's fantastic for controlling erosion. Let's see. Some small ground covers like chrysanthemum, which is green and gold. It's a nice little plant. Partridge berry is fantastic. Again, the sedges, the carrots, blue stem, Itea, clethra, ferns, service berry are attractive, and the fruit's edible too. So I definitely promote service berry. Everybody. Drainage issues, that's another one that we spend a lot of time working on because of development. You know, the standing water, how they're stacked up, and everybody's diverting water into their neighbor's yard. So we are often called to build rain gardens or bioswales, but a rain garden is not just something you create to deal with a big puddle in your yard. You know, rain gardens are very specific structures. So it's a rain garden accomplishes stormwater filtration by collecting water on low gradients, slowing it and allowing it to infiltrate into a porous surface instead of flowing across asphalt and concrete. When the water is slowed, suspended particles settle out and pollutants are decomposed by soil membranes, immobilized or incorporated into plants. So if you have standing water and you've got, like, you know, your downspouts are just pushing water out and it's landing in your yard, or you've got a big driveway and it's just, you've got water issues everywhere, rain garden is great. We can direct water into that area and build a rain garden. Plant beautiful plants that will thrive. And before you know it, the area is managed. You don't have sloshy, wet lawn anymore, and you've got a beautiful habitat with lots of butterflies floating around. One of my favorites. Bioswales are different, and they look like a dry creek bed with plants growing inside. So they use gravelly soil. The plants are actually planted in like that gravelly soil, and stormwater is absorbed deeply and quickly. I'm sure everyone here already knows what rain gardens and bioswales are, but it's a solution. You know, it's a way that native plants can solve problems in your backyard. So these are just some of the ideas I had, or thoughts that I came up with when I was thinking about this topic, how can we solve problems using native plants. By the way, this is the Spigelia I mentioned, Spigelia marylandicum, our little, that one's a little redhead actually, they're from Indian shades or little redhead. But here's a whole other list of great plants that will thrive with wet feed. Sweet pepper bush or clethra is great, one of my favorites. Ninebark, all the ferns and sedges. Silky dogwood, river birch, pawpaw trees. I just installed a little, 3 pawpaw trees today, one of my favorite native trees. American wild plum, that's another one, those. And also blueberry bushes, they have nice sucker root systems that are great for erosion control. Or also, rain gardens situation. So many plants to talk about. I hope that everyone has questions. This is just a little image of us planting trees at Brooklyn Park Middle School. But I'm hoping that we can discuss some problems that you might have or some questions about plants or things that have worked or not worked in your own yard, or share some things that have worked for you and not worked for you. So I'm gonna just open up and ask the questions.
I've got one.
Yes, please.
So many of these plants depend on different soil types.
Mhm.
Do you have a good do-it-yourself soil testing kit that you would recommend?
That's a great question. We have just ordered little soil testing kits on Amazon. Amazon's a great friend of mine, and it's just a little pH kind of thing that you stick in the soil sample. But I can say that I've done soil samples on what we sell, and 2 parts of our topsoil with 1 part of our mushroom compost is a 6.5 pH, which is the perfect acidity for most plants to thrive in. And that was actually a science fair project I conducted with my daughter when she was 12, she's 16 now. We had a lot of fun, and I wanted to see what we were selling and how it, what the acidity was. So 6.5, it's a great pH, 2 parts topsoil, 1 part mushroom compost. And most plants will really do well in that combination. We always recommend to backfill some of the native soil, but adding organic matter also. What other questions or problems do you have in your yards? I know we have a lot of very knowledgeable folks in this room, but we don't all know everything. So yes.
So I'm a very lazy homeowner. I like landscapes that take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And so I've been using my mother's old standby for a lot of things, which is Pachysandra.
Okay.
And I understand it is a food desert for her. So what would you recommend instead?
Yeah.
Similar wooded, trying to.
Sure, dry shade looking garden.
Yes.
Yeah. The partridge berry is one of my favorites. It's evergreen, great fall color. The berries are edible for birds. Small flowers are attractive to native wasps and bees. It's a bit difficult to establish just because they're small. It's hard to find a nursery that sells partridge berry, but it's an awesome plant, and I highly recommend that. Another option would be the sedges. Carrots are great in dry shade rather.
Say again, carrot?
Carrots, yeah. The carrot, Pennsylvanica. Mount Cuba has actually done some great trials on the sedges on this last year.
And I'm sorry, I know there's grass, and there's shrub, and there's trees. What's a sedge?
Well, gosh, a sedge.
Sedges have edges.
Yeah, a sedge is a grass-like plant. And I am not a botanist or a horticulturist, so I know what I know from learning.
It's sort of
how to
a
go.
big grass.
Yeah, it's grass.
Yeah, it's a grass. Mhm.
They can either clump or they can spread depending on which one you get.
Yeah, so
And you
it's
can mow some.
isn't the Pennsylvanica the clumping one, right?
It will spread a little
Well,
bit
that's
and then
good.
you can, if you want to mow it, you can.
This is what I love, everyone talking, because I guarantee many of you know more than I do about plants.
There's some online, Grace.
We do. How do you get rid of invasive plants like English ivy?
I had a fantastic horticulturist. He still works for me, but he hasn't actually worked for me in 2 years. But he's still in the payroll. Tate Saderholm, he's a brilliant horticulturist, and he conducted some studies with, I think, the University of Maryland on invasive species, Phragmites and removing. So they discovered that mowing it down and then using, oh gosh, was it rodeo or some herbicide was the best way to do that. Of course, we can't use herbicide. So The green or the vinegar, the horticultural vinegar is great with that, but it requires handwork. So I would say contact your local garden center or landscape company and have them eradicate it by hand. And then use, the vinegar, the vinegar is, but it requires several applications. But if you have a big deer population and you don't mind having a patch of poison ivy, or was it English ivy?
English ivy.
Goats do.
Goats do. I've had sheep and big deer, yeah. It's impractical, so removal by hand. Really. Other questions? Yeah.
So thinking back to one that you, which I about,
Mhm.
I'm struggling a little bit because I had to have a couple trees taken down, so I brought the county in for my permit, and we bought a house that had been abandoned for 2 years. So English ivy, poison ivy, kudzu took over everything, and I have to tell you all, I'm not from Arundel County, so I never knew what kudzu was. And it's almost something surreal, in my opinion. So I was told that I can't remove the English ivy without then replacing it with something. Like I can't eradicate it by ripping it out or killing it.
Is it on the waterfront or is it a slope on the water? Yeah, so they would,
So my question would be then, if I can get rid of it, what do I put in its place that isn't then gonna take over everything and just redo what I undid?
yes, and so the removal would be the biggest part of that work. But then restoring the soil, regrading on the inside there and replacing it with plants that would hold the soil. So I like grasses a lot for that purpose. Native grasses are attractive. They provide food and cover for wildlife. I always recommend don't cut your grasses back by the way until late February or early March, because that winter cover is very important for birds. But if you want to keep it low growing, you could use sedges. Again, the carrots varieties are great. But there are a lot of native plants that you could do, especially because of view, if you take the hillside, I would say plant Itea because they grow in suckers, maybe more toward the bottom, and let those just kind of grow and take off. With Itea, ITEA. And then as you go further up the hill, do some ornamental grasses, or carrots. So if it's full sun, we'll want to do ornamental grasses. Pardon me, native grasses. And if you plant them in big clumps, you can have like a color of all wheat colored grasses and blue colored grasses and different fall colors. Muhlenbergia capillaris has these beautiful plumes that are just, they look like cotton candy once they're blown. So there's some great variety of native grasses for that, like this. I think on a hillside, that's probably the best solution. What's that? Yeah.
And it's evergreen.
That is, yes, so please say that louder so she doesn't follow.
AURE, I think is the last.
Yes.
But it outcompetes things like the lesser zoology and kudzu, no, that's a different issue. Dirty goat.
Get it going.
Dirty goat.
So of course, the master gardeners have a lot of great information and knowledge, so learn from one another certainly. And, visit my garden center because my general manager, she's a master gardener. She's a lot smarter than I am. I'm just the face of the business sometimes. But my staff are a lot smarter and more knowledgeable than I am, and they love to talk about native plants. So visit us sometimes. If you can, but the University of Maryland is a great resource at the extension and the Watershed Stewards website. I mean, there are so many resources in this county and lots of great information online. But let's hear some more questions or problems. Yeah.
How do you feel about utilizing cultivars?
I love cultivars, native art. I love them because I mentioned the native dogwood earlier, and I know this may be an unpopular opinion here, so forgive me, but the Cornus Florida native dogwood is not thriving, but the Rutgers Select, which is mostly native dogwood, part Chinese or Coosa dogwood, is very, very hard. You get the big, beautiful flowers and the fruit that birds just love. And it's a great solution to a small understory tree in backlit sunlight. It's just a great solution.
That was the, say again?
That would be like the Cornus X, which is a cultivar. The Venus is my favorite. I really, Muhlenbergia capillaris undaunted. It's some pink muley grass that stays in home. So they're selected for their properties that are great for home gardens. So it's all of the great properties in most cases of the native, but just selected for some improvements. Like I have a backyard, I can't have food for problems. That's how I feel about it, but how do you folks feel about it?
Do they still feed pollinators?
Yes, but not all of them. So I think for each particular one, research is definitely required. And because growers are so anxious to get natives out, they are breeding them quickly. And so I think some of them are sterile. They're not all perfect. So I think that just be selective. If you're 100% native, then just stick with it and don't even think about the bars. But if you're curious or you are a little open to trying something that may or may not be, then just, call us up and ask us or research it. There's a lot of great information out there. What are your thoughts about them?
I don't know.
Some people have very strong opinions about not using them. But having used, I keep mentioning the dogwood, but what a heartbreaker. We install them, and as from the business perspective, we install this beautiful plant and it dies again. And then it's a loss for us because we have a great warranty, but who wants to replace a tree 5 times over warranty? I don't. I want to use something that is a better selection. And that's why I love those Rutgers University select. How did the Nebraska gardeners feel about me?
It depends on who you talk.
That's what I thought.
I mean, some of them are just absolutely militant
Yeah.
about natives, and they're ripping everything out.
Right.
They're recommending rip everything out.
Mhm.
I personally, my own humble opinion
Mhm.
is that you want to encourage planting, you want to encourage gardening, and you don't want to take away the soul of gardening.
Oh, I love that.
And people
sentiment.
love to plant what they love to look at.
Mhm.
So for example, if you love daylilies, then why be told to remove them? If you love peonies, they're not native, why be told to remove them? And I guess there's one cultivar of peonies that are native to Oregon. But not-
Right, that's right.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so I think that if you're preaching only plant natives and people do that and they look at the garden and I don't like it, then they will abandon gardening.
Mhm.
They'll take on fault.
I have to agree with that. Thank you.
So I think nativars are a gateway to native plants
Mhm.
for
Great,
people who
yes.
previously have no experience with natives, thinking that natives are messy, they can be like, I don't want to say gangly.
Yes, right.
Lots of shrubs sucker,
Mhm.
and in some certain circumstances that could be frowned upon. And so I think that nativars are a gateway to get people interested. And then from there,
A passion will develop.
Yeah.
Generally, it does. I think that's a great way to look at it. And this is great for me to hear on the retail side of things, because I want to learn what the consumers out there want. And more we're hearing native, which we love, because we really are, like I said, mission focused. We really want to support a better, healthier, more beautiful world. It's important, and we teach young people about that. We go to the high schools and we talk to students about that. we bring in small, young youth groups to talk about these things. So I love the idea of a native art being a gateway to native style. Because when they are selected for better, improved fall color, yeah, great. I love it. Why not?
There's a question. Whenever I try to plant trees or shrubs, they don't seem to do well. What size is suggested to start with for shrubs and or trees?
That's a good question, but I think it's more about soil testing. Because if the plant is not thriving and they've tried different plants, there's likely, some kind of issue with the soil. So soil test, we send ours to the University of Delaware, but I think that Anne Arundel Farm and Garden Center, Corey is an expert in soils and he does a quick on-site soil sample at his shop. So if you haven't visited his new location in Pasadena, Anne Arundel Farm and Garden Center, he's the grass seed guru and he's pretty good at soil samples. So that's a great place to start to understand the, the acidity of the soil, if there's some kind of lead issue or some other problem with the soil. And then, some customers or some gardeners rather, I'm sorry, I keep going to customers, but gardeners will forget that plants require water. It's just because it says it's hardy does not mean that you can plant it and forget it. Plants are hardy once established, and to get them established, it requires great soil and deep, thorough watering until they can start to develop. And we also use a product called biotone, which has little little living organisms that help the roots to grow. So that's organic, and we use that when planting their currants and we have root growth. So again, it's about soil condition or soil testing and making sure you water. And regarding size, most of our shrubs are 3 gallon, which is like a 15 to 18 inch, shrub. And that's pretty established. I would say like a 1 inch caliber tree minimum, because then they have a nice root system already developed and they're hardy and they survive several seasonal cycles and we can keep growing. So thank you for that. Any questions? Yes.
So what is the native art? And how's it different from the native?
Native plants are the plants that are indigenous to our area, our region. So if you walk in the woods, you'll see, you'll find a sweet magnolia. You'll see a pinna. You'll see the plants that are indigenous to this region. Native art is a plant that has been cultivated for certain qualities. So for the Muhlenbergia capillaris muhly grass I mentioned, the native art name is Undaunted. It has brighter color and it stays shorter. So they're selected just like roses, just like any that are cultivated. It's bred for its certain properties, just like dogs. Toy cup or what are the toy cup dogs? Teacup. They're bred for the tiny little cicadas. Certain plants are bred for attractive qualities. So in the native plant world, it would be things that had more lush foliage, or bigger flowers, or bigger fruit, or better fall color. Because it's true that some gardeners feel native plants and all native garden is not as attractive as buying for the ornamental plants. You're welcome. Yeah.
Well, I am also new to this. But I've been wanting to plant this winterberry. I didn't even know the name. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I'm excited, but now I hear them. Are there any tips to maybe try, help it get more established or less increasing in the year? I don't know what, so I can't give them much more support around it.
If you love it, which I do,
Yeah.
note that there are lots of winterberry cultivars also. So if you're really interested in tree native, you can find it. You'll want to find female and a male. so that they will produce the berries. Because some plants without the male, they won't pollinate, and then you won't have the beautiful berries that you want. I would recommend on a smaller property, if you can keep containers, lots of these plants will do really well in a container closer to the house. So maybe a couple of big containers filled with winterberry, and then some, I don't know, some short perennials around the side or grasses around the sides. You can make beautiful containers within the day. I don't recommend wrapping or netting deciduous shrubs just because it affects the leaf growth. Like if anyone wants to plant emerald green arborvitae and you have deer, you either wrap them or forget about it. Because, you know, they're just like, it's like hostile, deer love them. But I would say that planting them in an area where you can control the deer either with like flags or things that will startle them. Or just be really ready to spray them with deer spray, with the granular stuff, and ivory or Irish Spring soap shavings. You know, just be ready to be out there doing stuff to keep them away.
Mulch, are you talking about what I can make with a lawnmower?
Yeah.
Or say something I have to.
No, you can buy leaf mulch as far as I'm aware. You can buy leaf compost. But leaf mulch is at home. So there's like this year for the first time, customers were asking, do we leave the leaves in our bed? Or do we, you know, remove them and mulch them? And so we've learned that lots of pollinators lay eggs and the whole life cycle happens over winter and early spring in the leaf debris. So it's harmful to the pollinator communities, taking a leaf blower and blasting it all away and, you know, leaving a bare area and covering out with mulch. That's leaf mulch. And even some gardeners will mow and gosh, what is it? They take blow the leaves in a pile and then mow them and they become leaf chippings or whatever. I know I sound completely different up here. They take those broken up leaves, chipped up leaves, and use that as mulch for overwintering. You know, part of our business is landscaping, so we love to blow the beds out and edge them and fill them with mulch. But we also encourage customers to do both. So if you have an area that has really, you want it to be manicured to keep the neighbors happy, you know, that front foundation, sure, blow the leaves out, we'll mulch and make it look perfect. But the backyard beds or the woodland edges, you know, leave those alone. So we've learned to kind of have a happy medium. And I think that's what most of this really should be about, by the way, is a happy medium. You know, start with a few natives, start with some native art. You know, try an area of the property. You don't have to rip everything out and say, I'm doing only natives now and I'm ripping out my grandmother's roses because they're not native. Just try little bits of your area at a time and see what works, what doesn't work. And that way you can stay excited about gardening and trying new things. And I always tell, just like I tell kids when I'm talking about gardening, I tell everyone I talk to about gardening, it's like a science experiment. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, I plant things in January, or I sow seeds in January just because I feel like it, and it's a sunny day, and wow, you know, this carrot sprouted, that's awesome. You can try things and it doesn't have to be by the book all the time or by the rules. Like gardening rules are just, gosh, the worst. So I think you're meant to have fun, treat it like a science experiment and observe, you know, because, you know, one day you might see your favorite plant is covered with swallowtail caterpillars and you didn't know that that was going to attract them. How cool is that? Yes.
Can you speak briefly about chickens and gardening?
Oh, of course. If you visit my shop, you'll see about, I think we're down to 45 chickens now, but backyard chickens are very popular. So you have to keep, and they're beneficial. We love them. I mean, we let them out every morning and they just walk all over the yard and they eat the bugs and the crickets and, you know, they fertilize the soil naturally for it. If you have an area in your garden that you're trying to grow, you know, new little peas or carrots or beans, you want to keep the chickens out of that. But you can use the manure for fertilizing your garden, just right directly in the soil. That's a great question. Yeah, I think they go hand in hand for sure. It's a lot of fun. If you're a landscaper and you have 500 annuals that you have to plant the next day and you left them in the bottom spot and the chickens ate them all. That's That's never good. Yeah, we've done that. My staff get really upset. They're like, "We're reporting for chicks, why?" But, they're fun and just a side note, one of the most wonderful things is to watch the rooster interact with the hens because he'll find something and he'll make this sound and call the hens over to eat it. You know, look at this bud I found for you. So they're very social and fun to observe and,
Do you have the egg laying type?
oh yes, yeah, we have all different types, from the Bantam little guys to the giants, Jersey giants. So miniature chickens to giant chickens. Lots of roosters, probably 12 roosters. Yeah, golden pheasant, pigeons. Yeah, it's really fun.
How do you protect them? Foxes and hawks?
Well, well, they do have a run. They have a very secure, they have a coop and they have a very secure run. So we let them free range during the day. Some of them don't want to go out, so they stay in the range in the run all day. But the ones that are out, I mean, they cross the street and go on, they cross Schmidt's Lane and go into the woods and then they come back. So we have lost some to hawks. One of my favorite stories is when my son was on the tractor one time, loading up mulch for a customer, it's really quick, and he saw a hawk come down and swoop up one of the hens. So he jumped off the tractor and picked up the shovel and threw it like a javelin. And he hit the hawk. And the customer was like, "Oh gosh." It was awesome. The chicken lived, it was amazing. But that shovel just happened to be there, so that was pretty fun. But yeah, we lose chickens to hawks sometimes, not hawks so much because of their activity, and at night they're really secure. But we have to walk around the perimeter every single day because we want to look out for raccoons, or fox digging, or other pests that will try and get in there. Any other questions or favorite plants or favorite natives that we want to share? Yeah.
I'm driving down that I-97 today, and it's just lush on both sides with.
Calorie killer probably are about to.
So, is that a bad thing?
Yeah, they're very, they were so popular 20 years ago. That was one of the best plants because of beautiful spring flowers and flower. But, come to find out, they're very invasive. They will spread all throughout and take every character growing into
You're outlawed from the natural now.
outlaw.
You can't buy it here. I can't give it to you, the plant.
I don't think I can even find.
But
one.
they're everywhere. If you drive north, you know, the spring, they're everywhere.
Mhm.
And this year, they're even worse in 50 than last year.
I think so.
It's just mind boggling.
Mhm. It's unfortunate. I mean, they look beautiful, but they're a nuisance. Yeah.
Mountain.
Good question.
Yeah.
So our deer have now discovered that yes, they can jump.
Yeah, it's super.
So do you have any that are more or less? If you don't mind.
For one thing, on concern your property, if I would go ahead and put some fishing line up. Because that affects their, perception, thank you. That will work now.
Can you
But-
explain what you mean by putting, just like stringing it?
Yeah, yeah, if you put a fishing line in like an X between the fence posts, that just, they will stop and start and really protects it.
They can see it though?
Yeah. But they don't know.
They don't have to be close line, right?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, it's just fishing line, but I think the color, the reflection of it, it really helps. But, rhubarb, artichokes, asparagus, some of the more bitter greens, arugula, probably mustard greens, never had a problem with mustard greens. And our gardens used to be exposed to the shop, not the fence because of the thickens. But mustard greens are great, collard greens. The brassicas, like the broccoli, Brussels sprouts, they're pretty good. But your tomatoes, now, your peppers, forget your peppers this year, sorry. I know. No, you can do the fishing line and then that should help them. Welcome. Red Betty and the Ruffins. Yeah, I play guitar and congas and harmonica. What else do we do?
They play right up the.
We play at Romolo's, it's right up on Tap House and the Wheel and others and a lot of fun. It's grassy.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we are fun. Is there one more question or comment over here? Yes, please.
The GeoResist, that you can spray on plants, do they affect pollinators?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so because it's organic, the ones that we use. I'm Garden is the brand that we use and it's usually capsaicin.
Capsaicin.
Thank you. It has that, which is the oils from the peppers, hot peppers, and some other toxic, but not chemical elements. So I don't think so, but that's something I honestly don't know. And I would have to take closely. The granular ones certainly don't. But they're raining and it's just a scent. I'm not sure about this. Good question.
Yeah, quick beginner question.
Sure.
When you say clumps, is that like 3 to 5, 5 to 10?
It is, and for a landscaping best practice for aesthetic purposes, groups of 3, 5, 7 outnumbers are always ideal. So you can have a focal point, some filler, some foundation plants, and filler plants. So your focal point would be your sweet baby magnolia. Your foundation plants would be your inkberry holly, and your filler would be the black-eyed Susan, the cardinal flower, and the very fun, green and gold or something. Yeah. But 3s, 5s, 7s, because that gives more opportunity for foraging. Yeah, more blooms, more pollinators. Okay.
Round of applause for Elizabeth. I'm gonna briefly plug next month's speaker. So, and breaking news, we have a change of venue. So Tuesday, April 23rd, we will be at Anne Arundel Community College Work Hall. It'll come in your email.
Scan the QR code, follow us on social media and you'll get all the details.
But the speaker is Ned Kilman. Everyone knows he's a local author, environmentalist, and historian. Some of the books that he has written over the last 15 years include The Big Melt, Saving the Places We Love, The Chesapeake Watershed, and his latest book called Good Endeavors, A Maryland Family's Turbulent History. So he will be speaking next month for our Human Rights Speaker Series over at Anne Arundel Community College. So those emails will go out and we look forward to seeing you over there.